In the Vatican, liturgy is never just liturgy. It is language, it is symbol, it is silent power. And it is precisely for this reason that the sudden removal of a key figure in the liturgical apparatus cannot be interpreted as a minor matter, nor dismissed as a simple disciplinary consequence. Monsignor Marco Agugustini, until a few days earlier, a regular presence alongside the Pope during the most solemn celebrations, was not just any name. His role within the office for the liturgical celebrations of the Supreme Pontiff placed him in a very delicate position, that of one who makes visible, through the gestures and order of the rite, a certain idea of the Church. According to several Catholic sources, in the days immediately preceding Christmas, during the preparatory phase for an official meeting, a microphone accidentally left open recorded a phrase uttered by Monsignor Agugustini, a sentence that the same sources describe as seriously denigrating towards the College of Cardinals. For reasons of policy and decorum, the audio cannot be reproduced or replayed, but its content is indicated as clear enough to have provoked an immediate internal reaction. However, limiting oneself to the episode means missing the central point of the story. Within a few days, in fact, Monsignor Agugustini disappeared from the Vatican liturgical scene. He was no longer visible beside the Pope. He no longer appears in official celebrations. According to several independent Italian and international Catholic newspapers, the prelate has been removed from office. Sources use different but consistent terms: dismissed, dismissed, removed from office. All attribute the decision to the Pontiff, Leo XIV, while underlining the absence of an official statement from the Vatican press office. This is crucial. This isn't an isolated rumor, but a reconstruction shared by several qualified observers. And above all, there has been no official denial. At this point, attention inevitably shifts from the sentence to the figure. According to several analyses published by independent Catholic portals, Monsignor Agugustini embodied a precise liturgical profile: rigorous, sober, attentive to form, solemnity, and ritual continuity. Not an ideologue, not a polemicist, but a man of ritual. A man who, through his manner of being close to the Pope, conveyed a non-verbal but crystal-clear message. And it is here, according to Info Vaticana, that the story takes on broader implications. The website describes a figure who had become progressively intrusive in an ecclesial context marked by strong liturgical tensions, not because of what he said, but because of what he represented. Other commentators, quoted by international Catholic newspapers, emphasize how Augustine's presence was perceived by many faithful as a sign of continuity and order in a time of great fluidity. According to these analyses, it is precisely this perception that contributed to making him an uncomfortable figure. From this perspective, the open microphone incident isn't seen as the sole cause, but as a trigger, an element that would have made a decision inevitable, a decision that had already matured in a climate of latent tension. It's important to clarify, this remains an analysis, not a proven fact, but it is a recurring analysis shared by many observers, and therefore relevant from a journalistic perspective. According to Celia Non-Possum, Augustine's removal would be part of a broader trend of downsizing figures perceived as too closely tied to a traditional vision of the liturgy. The site openly speaks of a political ecclesiastical signal, while acknowledging that the audio episode provided a concrete basis for intervention. Other, more cautious portals avoid definitive conclusions but raise specific questions. Why such a swift and clear-cut reaction? Why no public explanation? Why no distinction made between a private expression and the institutional role played for years without comment? According to several commentators, what's striking is not just the removal, but the method. A silent, typically Roman method which avoids public confrontation but produces irreversible effects. No defense, no contextualization, no attempt to downplay the episode, just absence. Some independent newspapers compare this case with other documented episodes in the recent church, in which ambiguous words or controversial gestures have not generated comparable consequences. This gives rise to a widespread perception of disciplinary selectivity, which is not presented as an accusation, but as an open question. These observers ask, does a different threshold of tolerance exist today, depending on the ecclesiastical and symbolic profile of those involved? And if so, what are the real criteria that guide decisions? In the case of Monsignor Agugustini, there was no official response, and this very silence fuels the symbolic interpretation of the story. Because in the Church, especially when it comes to liturgy, what is left unsaid often weighs more heavily than what is said. The removal of a master of ceremonies is not a purely administrative act. It is a gesture that impacts the image of the pontificate, the language of the rite, and the balance between continuity and discontinuity. And when it happens without explanation, it inevitably becomes a signal. According to some analyses published in recent days, this episode is already being seen as a watershed moment, not because of the personal fate of a single prelate, but because of what it indicates about the internal climate and current priorities. Monsignor Agugustini, in silence, was removed, and in the Vatican, where nothing is ever accidental, what disappears quietly often reveals more than 1,000 declarations. Time will tell whether this incident will remain an isolated one or be remembered as the beginning of a clearer trend. But one thing is certain. At the heart of the papal liturgy, something has moved, and those who can read the signs know that this was no mere accident. For those who desire the same background music as this video, with sacred, profound, and contemplative sounds, and to listen to Gregorian chants in the same style, you can visit Fides et Traditio, a space dedicated to traditional liturgical music designed to accompany listening, reading, and meditation. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.